Hi, it's Jared from Strong Roots Farm. Today I'm going to take you through bed prep. So everything that we do from start to finish, either from new ground or a garden that's already been established there, all the way through covering it with fabric and planting it in. So that's all today on bed prep. Coming up after this.
I'm Jared McGinnis, and this is a story of my family and our farm. About a year ago, we purchased a small rundown farm and began working to transform it into a local, sustainable food source for our community. Please subscribe and come with us on this journey of faith, family, and healthy food. We are Strong Roots Farm.
Working in our greenhouse today. That's where we're planting right now, and continue to do that. Be a few more weeks before we plant outside, so today's video will come from the greenhouse, but this can be done outside. It doesn't matter where this is done. So you've tilled, you've got your whole garden tilled, whether you used a big tractor with a big tiller behind it or a little rototiller or whatever you've done. If you've stale seed bedded, if you've had beds in the past and they're already pre-made and you're just no-tilling, that's all fine. We'll go into all that. So my beds are tilled. I built them 30 inches wide from the planting surface here, 15-inch wide on my walkways. The reason I do that is because I have a 30-inch rake and I have a 15-inch rake for the sides, that side and that side. So my beds are laid out. They're about 4 inches higher than my walkways. If you're gonna do direct seeding, you have to stale seed bed, okay? Especially if it's your first year. If it's not, you may be pretty well on it. You may not have to have a huge stale seed bedding timeline to get all that in, but my beds are finished here. Next step, you can see I've got compost on this aisle right here. So the compost is already down, and I'm gonna take you through that and show you what I do. Basically, all I do is take a 5-gallon bucket, and I use about 1 gallon a foot. So a 5-gallon bucket should last me about 5 feet as I put it on. I want that 1/4 to 1/8 inch, 1/2 inch at the most, topping of compost. This is a first-time bed, so these beds have never been planted before. So I'm gonna go a little thicker of that, 1/4 to 1/2 inch more than 1/8. Okay, so if I see dirt through it, I might put a little more in that area. Let's go through how I'm putting compost down. That's pretty much it. I just take the 5-gallon bucket. You can see I've got a little windrow in the center. What I'll do is I'll come back and I'll rake this smooth. I might hit it with the tilter if it's a little chunky, and then I'll be ready for my fabric on top. Let's go look at my compost though, and I'll talk to you about your compost options. So here's my compost. I'm using mushroom compost. I got 2 yards. I've got this nice little dump trailer, and that's the way I get it. So I use mushroom compost because it's the easiest access I have at my farm. So about 5 miles away, there's a landscape company. They sell this mushroom compost. It's $45 a yard. I'll use 2 yards at the start of the beds, maybe 3, and then throughout the season as I turn over, I'll use another yard or 2. So here on about 1/10 of an acre, maybe even a little more this year if I get crazy, we'll use about 3 yards, and that should last me pretty well. On beds that are already established, you'll use less, but that's the way we're going. Let's talk about how you should pick your compost up. So you can see I've got this little dump trailer. It's not a huge one. You can pick these up from $3,500 to $5,000, depending on the weight. You can look at those kind of things. I like the wheel out to where the bed would be lower, but this is the cheaper option, so I'm a bed over. This is a good Salatin tool, so it's a tool that I can use for hauling gravel and sand and compost and manure. Anything I've got, I can haul in this thing, so it's a multi-use tool. I use this thing at least 2 or 3 times a month, so it gets quite a bit of use here. It's a great tool for me to have. I've got this cheap truck over here. So I was looking at golf carts, I was looking at gators, I was looking at all these things to have on the farm, 4-wheel drive four-wheelers to go around pull the water cart around. And I ended up on this option of this truck. So I paid $2,500 for this truck. It's cheap, it runs good, it's 4-wheel drive, it's just a beater truck. I don't have to worry about scratching up my nice truck. And I can also pick compost up in this if I wanted to, and I don't have to worry about it. So that's a good option. For you though, if you have a small garden, so you're a 10-bed person a year, you might just want to go with bags. Bags are pretty easy. It's cheaper to buy in bulk, but it's not a whole lot incredibly higher if you only have 10 rows or something. If you have a small little garden in your backyard, bags might be the way to go. They're already packaged. You carry them to, dump them out of the bag. If you're bigger though, find you a local source of compost. I know Vermont Compost here in the States is a very big compost company. They will ship to you. They are a little more expensive. It is worthwhile though. So there are different things that you should think about with your compost. If you're using your compost for seed trays, it's worthwhile to spend a little more money to get what you want. If it's just for your garden and different things, you can make it yourself. and pay attention to it and measure it. But otherwise, just find you a local source for it, and it's a good option to have. It's a good thing to have for your garden. It builds the microbiology and it helps get your plants started a little better, continues to feed them over through their growth. So the compost is all down. I hit it with a rake just real quick, just kind of spread it out pretty well. Didn't get real close to the edge. I try to stay 3 or 4 inches from that edge. As I tilt her, it'll move it out. There's a couple areas that are a little thin, so you can kind of see here, I can kind of see dirt through it. So I'm going to go ahead and put another bucket down through here, rake it out, and then I'm going to hit it with the tilther. We'll come back. All right, so we got the tilther ran, and now I'm back to laying fabric. So got the fabric laid on this side. What I'm going to do before I lay my fabric is roll my drip line underneath. So depending on what kind of crops you're going to have here is going to determine how many lines of drip line you're going to lay. I probably should go with 2 or 3 in this, but I'm going to try this one out. Last year I used a lot of water and it went really quick, so I don't think I need that much. I can go longer in the time if I need to. There's going to be 2 crops here. So there'll be tomatoes towards us that will tie up here above, and then there'll be something else behind it. Basil, cauliflower, different things behind it. I'm going to do a kind of diversity behind it that takes a longer time, but I can crop it out then when the tomatoes are real big, and then it'll just be tomatoes until we harvest in August. When we're done and we're cropping out August, September time frame, we crop all that out, and then we'll come back in, get this ready again, stale seed bed it, and go through this again for our winter crops. But for now, got the tilther ran, got the fabric down, got the drip line down, so now I'm going to lay the fabric on this side. If you've never seen how to burn fabric real quick, here's a quick little clip of it, but then you can also go back to my old videos and check that out as well. All right, and as my buddy Brian Smith would say, voila, it's done. So we've got, everything was tilthered, tubes underneath, fabric on, and you can see I've used bricks. So there's one right there. I just used bricks because that's what I had. There's these sandbags, all these things. You probably don't need a whole lot of wind protection on your fabric in a greenhouse, but I know as I raise these sides and we've been getting some wind, I just don't want it to pop up when the lettuce is small, when the tomatoes are small, and really hurt stuff. So I went ahead and tied them down with bricks. There's sandbags, there's stakes, there's, you know, anything. Just use something heavy to hold it down. That's what you can do. So it's down. We are ready to transplant. Everything is done. One thing that I didn't mention that you can do is put some fertilizer down. So whether that be turkey manure, bone, blood meal, lime, all those things, whatever you want to put down, whatever your soil needs, you can put those amendments underneath before you put this fabric on. I've tested this soil. I don't need a whole lot. So I will have to come back with some bone and blood meal, or maybe a liquid organic fertilizer I'll put in my drip tubes, whatever I have to do, but I'll keep a watch on that and test that as I go along. Of course, as we have this lettuce, we have kale, we have some other things in here that'll be early crops. As we crop those out and put new crops in, we'll re-amend the soil with that. So everything's ready to transplant. Transplants are in the house. It's supposed to get down below 40 tonight. This is supposed to be our last night below 40. So we're going to wait till tomorrow to transplant. If you need to watch a transplant video, there's plenty of them out there. Basically, all we're doing is putting whatever plant you're wanting in that spot. So spacing, all those things, I already know what's going in these holes. That's why I have the fabric with the correct spacing on it. But that's pretty much it. Overall, start to finish, that's all we did today. All right, so let's talk about some different things. I mentioned in the beginning of the video, if you're no-till, all you would do is come in with that compost, layer it out. If you want to tilther it in, go on with your fabric and you're done. That's pretty much it. Same thing we just did. You're just not tilling the soil. You're not building your beds. If your beds are already established, you have to make that choice, which I talked about in a couple videos previously, about do I till it? Do I just hit it with a tilther? Is it worth no-tilling? Is it not? All those things. You have to make that decision, but hit it with your tiller, hit it with your tilther, whatever you got to do. Just depending on what the soil looks like, how deep it is. If you're going to broad fork it, that's the time to broad fork it. Then hit it with your compost and go on and build your rows. So that's it, start to finish. That's how we build our beds. We're ready for transplant. We're ready to go. Lettuce is 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the time of the year. Your tomatoes are 120, 140 days. You're going to have tomatoes in those plants, in those holes. So think about all that. And then also get a comparison planting chart. So it's really important. I really wanted to have onions in this thing to get some early onions this year. But all my comparison planting things said onions probably weren't a good idea next to the few things that I was going to grow in the greenhouse. So onions will go outside. It's fine. They store well. I'll be able to raise a bunch of them and store them. Same thing with the potatoes. Not going to use my greenhouse space for my potatoes and those kind of things. Squash, all that stuff, it won't go in a greenhouse, but it can be done the same way. So when you're burning your fabric though, you got to kind of think about that. What spacing do I need and all that. I mentioned way early in a video a couple years ago or a year ago about how to burn your fabric with a template, that plywood that you saw me using. So that was very different. We went up one row. We wanted to make a specific burn mark for this greenhouse. So that's not my typical thing. I usually have a 4 foot wide or a 3 foot wide, whatever size my fabric is, piece of plywood, 8 foot long, so I don't have to move it as many times. It's better to do it with two. So during the video, my wife wasn't helping me, but my wife did come out and help me with that. It's easier with two people. If the wind blows it, get you on a slow or a soft surface and kind of go along. Otherwise, it's going to be real slow for you. So move it, those kind of things. I see guys burning multi-layers of fabric at one time. So 3 or 4 layers thick and burning them all the same way. I've never had good look at that. My bottom one ends up smaller than my top one. It burns different. And I've had some issues. So I don't do that, but you can try that as well. So I hope these videos help you. Keep watching. Please subscribe.
As always, thanks for watching. Tell your mama and them. Subscribe and comment to continue with us on this journey. And don't forget to check out Noah Smith at noahsmithmusic.com.